Welcome to the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Real Country 92.1 Hank FM. Live from Boo Rays in New Orleans and Hudson Oaks, the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. And now, here's the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist.
And we welcome you to Boo Rays of New Orleans here in Hudson Oaks for the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. I'm Kevin Lonnquist and want to remind you that Boo Rays of New Orleans has locations all over the Westoplex, not only here, but also in Crowley and in Lake Worth. And we also want to recognize our two presenting sponsors between H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. We are grateful for their support throughout the 2024-25 academic calendar. Every other week rotation on the diamond continues. Time for baseball this week, and the Bearcats are on a roll. They have won their last three, now 17-5 overall, 6-0 in District 5-5A. They swept Keller Fossil Ridge by the same score of 14-0 last Tuesday, and then they beat the Rain last Friday and got that second game in. And then they turned around on Saturday, kind of had to wait for those storms to move through on Saturday, but beat the Hawks 15-5 on Saturday. That's a bunch of runs last week, folks. 43 runs that this team scored over the last three games. And so we're going to see if they can do that as an encore this week, as they're going to be taking on the Saginaw Rough Riders. They're going to be at Saginaw on Tuesday. Then the Bearcats will be at home to host this coming Friday. Then it's what Coach Chad Berry is hoping will not be the final non-district game on Saturday against Mansfield Lake Ridge. He's looking for another one, but this Lake Ridge game very significant because it is going to be Senior Day, and that's why this second segment of our podcast will have a senior heavy emphasis to it. Two-segment podcast, as we mentioned, and of course, Chad Berry is going to be with us here in the first segment, and then in our second segment, it will be senior pitcher Ethan Hodo and senior outfielder Luke Trager. All right, Coach, first of all, congratulations on the outstanding week last week. Again, 3-0, 43 runs scored, took advantage of some counts, a lot of balls flying all over the ballpark, and that's what a coach loves to see when an offense is rolling like this. What got into this group?
I think it's just been, throughout the course of a season, you have ups and downs, and, we'd kind of been struggling at the plate, and I felt like we were pressing, and then Tuesday night we got off to a really good start, and I think it just kind of became contagious. Yeah. And I think everybody kind of relaxed and had a good approach at the plate, and, we saw some pitching that not quite as good as what we've been seeing, sure, but we did exactly what we should have done with it.
Exactly, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. But, and you bring up a good point because these district games and their intensity are what they are. And you had scored only 3 runs in each of the first 4 games that you played. And I think there is something telling to that. Is it something where just being relaxed, the opposing hurler has something to do with it, as you mentioned, but just having a plan, being more relaxed, and then when those first couple of things kind of string together, as you mentioned, becomes contagious.
And that's kind of what we've been talking about, is just sharpening our approach, getting ourselves into good hitting counts, not chasing out of the zone. And then when we get guys on base where pitchers have to challenge us, we feel like that's where we want to be. And then, we didn't miss this week. Yeah. We hit a lot of barrels.
And that's the great thing when it's getting square, or even if you're getting flares that drop in or things like that, or things that, hard hit balls that are maybe inside the line, either the third base line or the first base line. When you're getting that sort of thing, that's when a lot of things are clicking for you too. A lot of baseball gods are in your favor,
for sure,
in some of that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your lineup here because Luke's going to be talking about this too. Originally, he was hitting 9. You might be moving him up in the order, as you mentioned before we went on the air, but. Aside from that, do you believe you pretty much have your 1 through 9 in the order pretty much set, or how do you see that at this point?
I think at this point, no, we really don't. Luke will tell you in a minute. He came off the bench this week. He had been kind of struggling at the plate, and so I told him, I said, we have a lot of talent on this team. We're going to give somebody else a shot, and and he responded really well. Mm-hmm. He didn't get down on himself. He went back to work. I saw him last Saturday when we got home, and he went straight up to the cages, and when we got back from Marcus, and went back to work right then and there, and I felt like give him a week, he'll be fine, and he proved it on Tuesday night. It was the first at bat off the bench, hit a home run.
Yeah, you got to love that. By the way, it was good to have a first name of Luke or Lucas last week because Lucas Naraki, huge series against Fossil Ridge, 10 RBIs in that series, including a grand slam. That's a week he's going to remember.
Oh, for sure. He hit both of those home runs on Tuesday in the same inning. We batted around. He hit 2 home runs in 1 inning. So, I don't know that I've ever seen that happen for a a single player that I've coached here, but we ended up hitting 3 in that inning, and Luke hit 1, Lucas hit 2. I was just like, wow. They just kind of ignited the whole offense.
And then you get to finish early because you only played 5 innings in each of those games, so that's always nice to get your work in. And speaking of Mr. Trager, last week a pair of home runs, 5 RBIs. And, we talk about the runs, but as you talked about a few moments ago, just driving the ball better this year. You're up to about 6 home runs this year. You had 10 all of last year, so you might be on pace to break that. It's not so much about the home runs as it is just getting balls in the alley or just keeping things going. How would you assess where this team is in terms of just its ability to drive the ball?
I think they're starting to really click with just realizing what we want is a gap-to-gap approach, and if we'll continue to hit line drives, those home runs will come naturally with those line drives that rise. But the more we hit the ball hard on a line, we feel like the more potential we have to have huge innings like we did last week.
Yeah, now we need Bearcat Field to actually have the winds keep blowing from the north, because we all know that if you've watched a game in that stadium and the winds are blowing something fierce from the south, you hit something into the teeth of that wind, and it might clear on most nights, but if the wind's coming from the south, it's going to get caught. So when you're dealing with the wind like that, I would have to think that your batters have to adjust, because I saw it quite a bit the last couple of years.
Sure. Most of the time we get a south wind, so it blows straight in from left, and you could hit it a mile into left field and it becomes a routine fly. But if you hit it into right center, the ball takes off and flies into the gap, and that's kind of what we try to do is like go the other way with it. Look for a pitch on the outer half, drive it into the right center alley, and it'll take off and go, and we'll pick up doubles and triples that way.
I would imagine too, just the way that you've talked about this with your teams having plans and that sort of thing. Do you feel like they've done a better job at this point hitting it where it's pitched? If it's low and outside, just kind of serve it into right field, or if you're a left-handed hitter, serve it into left field, that sort of thing. How would you see where that is at this point?
I think our approach is more mature this year, where we're at, as opposed to where we were last season at this time. A lot of the kids that are in the lineup were in the lineup last year. They're a year older this year. And then we've definitely got some new faces, but I think overall as a group of hitters, I think they understand more of how to drive the ball the other way, know what the pitcher's giving you and what to take. And so I think that's the maturity and a year of experience under their belt has helped them tremendously.
And to that point, we mentioned in the Fossil Ridge series, maybe the quality of the arms that you were facing were maybe not up to par than what you faced against Chisholm Trail and also against Brewer. But at the same time, the good thing is that you all took advantage of that. I think if you all were still struggling to score runs in those games, even against Birdville on Saturday, that probably would have more sleepless nights for you. But at the same time, so they took advantage of that, and they were able to win those matchups decisively like they did.
For sure. I mean, if we had struggled last week, I would be really questioning myself, going, what are we doing? Where are we headed? But I think they really sparked last week. They kind of got their confidence back at the plate. I think that they were a little nervous, a little almost pressing, almost trying to be too fine with everything, instead of just going up there and saying, if he throws me a good pitch, I'm gonna go after it. And that's kind of the mentality we're after. Is if that's a good pitch, first pitch, second pitch, whatever it is, if you get a good one that you think you can hit hard, swing at it. Try to hit it hard. And that's kind of what they did last week, and I think they need to continue that moving forward.
And even if it's a whistler that's right at somebody's glove, maybe the next at bat it's going to drop in or something like that. As long as you're making solid contact, sooner or later something's going to happen for the right reasons for your lineup. And so, it is what it is when it comes to that.
For sure. I mean, the loud outs, hard hit balls. I mean, I'm never going to tell a kid, hey, you shouldn't have done anything different there. I'm like, keep doing what you're doing. You'll find a hole pretty soon.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Ethan Hodo individually. So far this year, he's appeared in 4 games, 8 innings pitched, has a 1-0 record, and has a save to his credit as well. 9 strikeouts, no walks. What have you seen from him so far?
Consistency. He, last year he was one of the first guys out of the bullpen if we had to have what we call a dirty inning, where a pitcher gets in trouble and he's struggling and can't get out of the inning. We would call on Ethan for that, and we'll probably call on him some again as well this year. Just really hadn't had many of those innings yet, but he's been getting some work in on some Saturday games and stuff, and he had 2 innings of work this past Saturday and pitched 2 great innings, picked up a win. But I mean, think he's got 9 strikeouts on the season, no walks. So, I mean, we feel very confident anytime he steps on the mound that he's going to do a great job and keep us in it.
And I remember what you said to me 2 weeks ago when you were here, when I talked about if this team is going to make a deep run in the playoffs, you have to have arms. And I think the number of pitchers you had that you felt confident that you could run out there 9, 10, something like that, and he would be one of them.
Oh, for sure, 100%. To me, he's probably one of the more hard-nosed, tougher kids, kind of quiet. You wouldn't know it about him unless you really knew him, but he's a fierce competitor. And, I mean, I think, if the game's on the line, he wants the ball if we call on a reliever.
It's kind of like they use that term with a pitcher like that, a bulldog, that sort of thing. I mean,
very, very, very fitting for him. He's definitely a bulldog.
Now, for you and me and our age, and for the parents sitting out there, if I say the name Oral Hershiser, the dads are going to probably remember who Oral was. He was a great pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Oral had that bulldog mentality to him, and he wouldn't give in on anything else. For Ethan and Luke, they're like, what? Who are those guys? And it's a little bit after their time, but that's okay. But anyway, let's just talk a couple more things before we let you go here. Obviously, like Fossil Ridge last week, you're going to be facing a team in Saginaw this week. We all know the records. This group knows what they are. They're having a really tough year fighting it, only 3-19. And it was something that I was talking about with Heather Myers, the softball coach, last week, when they're getting into these games against opponents where they know that they are the better team, the far better team. It's about playing to a standard rather than playing down to the level of a team where it's struggling, or to take it, lightly or whatever and not give your best effort. So what is your approach with your team when you run into a series like this where against an opponent that's really going through some tough times?
I tell them it's a trap week. I mean, everybody knows the Granbury series is on the horizon coming. But I said this is a trap week for us. If we are not ready to play, this team is good enough to beat us. They got beat by Granbury 1-0 one game. They got beat like 5-1. I mean, all their district games outside of 1 or 2 have been pretty close, within 3-4 runs. And so they've got good pitching and they can play defense. Don't know how well they hit it, but they're going to bunt. They're going to play small ball a lot. And so it's one of those things where if we go out and we're not focused and ready to play defense and pitch and hit, they're a team that they can jump up and bite you.
Yeah, the way you're describing them kind of reminds me of Azle last year, where Azle was just kind of, even though Azle wound up making the playoffs, if I remember correctly, or maybe they missed by a game or something like that. But they were the kind of team, though, that would kind of make the game ugly, but they'd find a way to stay in it, and maybe they might steal a win here and there, that sort of thing. Does that sound?
Yes, I think that's exactly. I think they want to play a slower paced game. They're going to want to bunt the ball. They're going to try to hit and run and things like that. I mean, they've even bunted with 1 out, so they'll bunt to put themselves in with 2 outs and put 2 runners in scoring position and try to pick up a 2-out hit, just because they're just trying to generate offense. And so if you're not ready, if you make mistakes when they are bunting the ball and don't get outs, I think they can do some damage. They've still got a few pretty good hitters in the lineup left over from last year.
Yeah, 3 weeks down in this district season, 3 weeks to go. Of course, we talked about Saginaw. That'll be 8 games played once this week is concluded, which, by the way, going to be great weather for this week. So for anyone who has a chance to go out and watch the Bearcats, either up in Saginaw or home on Friday or even on Saturday's game, make your plans to go out there and catch this team, which is playing really, really good baseball. But as far as this district race is concerned, it's really interesting. We've got a lot of separation now, but you all are tied at the top with Granbury. The Pirates have won 9 straight games, so they're really hot. And I would think, too, because of the fact that series looms next week, you got to get these two and the rest of that crew not overlooking Saginaw and not looking ahead to Granbury because of what is anticipated for next week. So what's kind of the plan as far as saying it's Saginaw this week, Granbury will take care of itself next week?
I told them starting today, I said, take the next step. Don't worry about Friday. Don't worry about Saturday. Take the next step. Worry about Tuesday first. And if we'll worry about Tuesday, then we can practice Wednesday and practice Thursday and get ready to take the next step Friday. But I'm like, if we start thinking ahead, we're going to look back with a lot of disappointment when this week's over.
Couple more, because I lied to you, actually. Okay, so you have this Saturday game this week against Mansfield Lake Ridge. You said before we got on this recording that you wanted to find us another non-district game on Saturday. Why?
Pitching. I want my pitchers to get as much work as they can going into the playoffs, and that leaves us after this Saturday. There's 2 more Saturdays before the playoffs begin. So if we can't find anything, we're going to probably practice on Saturday and we'll inter-squad ourselves.
You guys getting that? Would you rather practice or play the game on Saturday? What would be the choice? Rocket, you can hold your answers until you guys come up here. So when I ask Ethan and Luke that question. Final question for you, because we were talking about this also, about the fact that you carry 31 on this roster, which is a high number for a coach, but for as much talent as you have, there's a really good reason for it, because I remember this roster of yours predominantly has been around the mid-20s, 24, 25, something like that. So just talk about the thinking about when you have a roster of that size and how you try to use it throughout the course of a season.
Well, I think what it's done is we have two really strong classes right here. I think our junior class and our senior class are both really talented and they're really deep. And so what it's done is created, if somebody's having an off week or an off series, we can get somebody else in there for them. And, I think in practice it creates a lot of competitive situations to where, you're having to work all the time because somebody's on your heels working as hard or harder. And so if you're not getting it done, somebody else is going to go in and get their chance. Yeah. So I think it's been good for everybody involved.
And they don't think about so much like, depth is talked about so much at the football level and also in basketball, where basketball teams, you can run about 8, 9 deep on a rotation. And then with football, your second teamers will be as good. But with baseball, they kind of look at the depth by going, a couple of pinch hitters here, maybe a couple of defensive replacements and that sort of thing, and that's kind of where it's left at. But I kind of get the sense that it's changed quite a bit over time, or maybe over the last 5-10 years, where it's really like, I need multiple starters that I can use to, because I see it a lot at the major league level. You're starting to see it more at the college level, and it seems like it's trickling down to the high school level.
Yes, I think so. With pitch counts and things like that, and with as many kids in this area of the Metroplex that are, really, really talented at baseball, to me, it's all about development, and they get a lot of development in practice. There's very seldom a day goes by that we're not competing against a group, 2 groups or 3 groups competing against each other for a set amount of time, and just really just getting after it each and every day and competing at the plate and on defense, trying to outplay the guy playing your position when you're not. So it's to me, it's all about competition, and really just getting after it.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch too, because when you get that kind of thing going there, it makes your team better, because the way guys are pushing each other, and the fact that it can raise that level of play too, to that standard that you're looking for. Because if you want to get down to Austin in early June, that's what it's going to take.
Oh, for sure. I think some of the best games we've had this year have been against ourselves during our open week. We had 2 scrimmages where 2 starters started, and we had relievers after them, and we played 2 games, put uniforms on, and it got pretty intense.
Yeah, and that's all you want. All right, so in 2 weeks when you come back, we'll talk about, hopefully we'll be talking about, number one, this team already having clinched a playoff series, or playoff berth rather. We'll also be talking about the after effects of what happened in the Granbury series, and then looking ahead toward obviously this team getting ready for the final week of the regular season, and then looking ahead to the playoffs. And of course, you already know if the playoff situation goes the way it is, you're going to go 5A Division I. And I've asked all the coaches this question about in the other sports, and we've had other podcasts about knowing that region, knowing how the new playoff situation is set up in Division I and Division II. From a baseball standpoint, how does that change, or have you given it much thought, or are we too far away from really looking that deep into it?
I'm not going to lie. I've looked at the other districts around to see who.
That's all right. Heather Myers did too last week.
So go in Division I, go in Division II, and kind of looking at the region and things like that. So I've looked, and to me, it looks like favorable being Region 1 for us. I really think we got an opportunity if we'll take care of business.
Well, we will soon find out as this week unfolds against Saginaw. And again, Senior Day will be Saturday afternoon against Mansfield Lake Ridge. Coach, we'll look forward to tracking how you guys do this week, and then we'll see you in a couple weeks then.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. And we want to remind you that this Aledo Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda. Head to Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth today. Their new state-of-the-art facility is conveniently located just off of I-30, exit Las Vegas Trail, and experience top-notch service and hassle-free buying. Don't forget to ask about this month's special offers. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated for more than 30 years. Stick around. The second segment of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast will be coming up here in just a few moments with Ethan Hodo and Luke Trager. We'll be right back. And back here on the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, I'm Kevin Lonnquist. Before we meet up with Ethan Hodo and Luke Trager, a couple of Aledo notables to tell you about was we mentioned on the first segment the softball team. They are at 19-3 and 8-0 in District 5-5A, and yes, that district winning streak is now at 55-0. Home to Fossil Ridge on Tuesday, where they should be clinching a playoff berth on Tuesday night, and then the Lady Cats will be at Saginaw on Friday. And then congratulations to both the boys and girls track teams for winning the District 5-5A meet last week at Saginaw High School. And Tim Buchanan Stadium will be the host for the area track meet, where it's going to be held this coming Friday, where regional berths will be on the line. Okay, pleased to be joined by senior pitcher Ethan Hodo. He's off to my far left, and then senior outfielder Luke Trager to my immediate left. Guys, thanks for being with us, and let's give them all a nice hand. Okay, so overall, I'm just going to ask you both, and I'll start with you on this, Ethan, just about where you all feel like you are as a team. Just overall, start where we all got started with the tournaments back in February to where you are now getting ready to play the Saginaw Series. 22 games under your belt, undefeated in district play. Just give me just an overall assessment as to where you think this team is and what it's done.
I mean, coming off this past week, we were, like, at the beginning of district, we were kind of struggling. And, like, going back to the tournament season, we didn't have, like, the best offensive output, but going off this past week where we scored, what'd you say, it was like 42 or something?
43, yeah.
43 runs in 1 week, which like almost triples our district total so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling good. I think the offense is feeling good. I mean, I'll let him speak more to that, but we looked pretty good this past week. So.
Okay, and then Luke, what about for you?
Absolutely. I mean, the past couple days, like hitting the ball, I feel like everyone's seeing it a lot better than we have been. And, yeah, maybe the pitching wasn't like the greatest we've seen all year, but, you know, just that confidence booster that we're getting in that past week and all of us hitting the ball really, really well rather than not hitting it as well, like either earlier in the year, like tournament season and early district. I think it's really good for us as we progress through the season and get closer to playoffs. So.
All right, so when you go through a week like you just came off of where you scored as many runs as you did, you know, we use the word contagious so much, but is that how it felt as those games were ongoing, especially the inning where on Tuesday night against Fossil Ridge where you all batted around and you saw Naraki hit 2 home runs? But is that a feeling that just everyone is so locked in that it just has that connected feeling to it? How do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. If you got, like, think about it. If you see some guy barrel a ball, you're like, oh, if that guy can barrel a ball, like, I could barrel that ball. And then it's just like guys keep going, and then it's just like contagious, like you said, and it's just hit after hit after hit after walk after hit. And then it's just like RBI, and then everyone's just like, yeah, everyone's hyping the dugout. Once you get the guys hyping the dugout, it's over. It's
kind of Ethan. Have you ever been in a stretch where 3-game stretch where a team has been as hot as it has been offensively?
I mean, not on varsity, not these past couple of years. I haven't seen. I can't remember the last time we scored 14 runs in a game. That's been a long time, but it was pretty crazy just to see. Like, you talk about that inning on Tuesday, but then on Friday we came out. In the first inning we scored. Well, I think we scored like 6 runs in the first inning. Our first 4 of our first 5 guys hit extra base hits, and it was just. Everything was rolling. Everybody was hitting good, and it was pretty fun to watch.
All right, so let's continue with you just about your season. We went through your stats. No ERA, which is always good to have an ERA of 0. That means no one's been running across the plate on you. But just what's been working well for you? What's about your velocity, your pitches that have been going well? What would you say that you've been? I know it's only been 4 games, but that still can be. That's still a lot of innings out there where this team might be looking at you to contribute far more down the stretch.
My pitches, so I'm not the hardest thrower on their team by any means, but I like to just pound the zone, like you said earlier, no walks. That's kind of my thing. I don't like to give out free passes. I like to get a bunch of ground balls, throwing sinkers and stuff. And so I just that's pretty much it.
Is your velocity somewhere around mid-80s?
Yes, sir. Like mid to low 80s.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, what you can do with that is changing your speeds, and that's because we're at a period of baseball, and Coach Berry can speak to this, is that everyone is so fastball heavy that it might be an advantage for you the fact that you don't throw it as hard, but you can kind of change speeds on that. Are you finding that out even in your 4 games and even what you did last year as a junior?
Yes, sir. It's kind of a bunch of our starters and stuff, though. We got like 4 or 5 guys that are in the 90s this year, and so whenever I come in, it makes it a lot easier. They're not ready for it. I can throw a bunch of off speeds and kind of get them out on their front foot. That helps get a bunch of ground balls and just let them put the ball in play, let my defense work, try not to give out any free passes.
Gotcha. On your give us your repertoire. What do you throw?
So my main pitches, I go sinker, and I also have a 4-seam, but I like to throw the sinker a lot. And then probably my best pitch would be a changeup. I like to work that, especially to lefties. That helps get ground balls. And then slider has been that's kind of the strikeout pitch, or like if I have somebody down in the count, I like to throw a slider a lot.
Is it a straight or a circle change?
A circle change.
Circle, because it's kind of like this, where you hold it like that, where you got to stick that ball. As if you're watching the YouTube video, where you got to jam the ball way in the back of your palm. Is that a grip that's pretty easy to master now, or is that still kind of a work in progress, or how do you see that?
It took me a little bit to get used to it. It's all just about like your release point, and like I like to pronate it a lot, which means like I try to get the circle of the changeup pointed at the catcher, and I hope that gets it a really good fade action. And so I've gotten pretty used to it. That's like probably my favorite pitch to throw. It's not much better than a good changeup. That's what Coach Evans says.
All right. So Luke, let's transition over to you. Of course, great week for you last week. An opportunity for you because you were on the bench, but then Coach Barry brought you into the starting lineup last week, and you took advantage of it. Great week. Congratulations. Again, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. This is about taking advantage of your opportunity. And so when you are able to do that, what kind of confidence does that give you?
A lot of confidence. Like, I was going in, like, I wasn't really hitting great last week before this, and I was like, what am I going to do? And, as Coach Barry said earlier, I just was stuck back to the basics, got in the cages, worked on everything, and I just came in and I was like, you know what? Like, it's baseball. It's going to happen. Like, I'm going to go out there. I know how good I am. I know I can play. And I got all that confidence in me, and, whenever that happens, you see the results, it's amazing. You see that happen, and you're just like, yeah, like, I can do that or something like that.
Any changes in your swing, or what did you look at? Or, because everyone's looking at tape these days repeatedly, number of swings, things like that. What was it for you that maybe you noticed, or did you just say, I don't want to look at tape, I just got to get up there and swing, or how did you approach that?
It's kind of just more of a feel thing for me. I watch tape a little bit, like whenever I have bad at-bats or bad swings, I'll look at it a little bit, but for the most part, the only thing that I did was I went from hands, I had my hands down for most of the season, and I kind of just brought them up, because that was how I was last year, and I don't know why I kind of changed it a little bit this year. I was hitting pretty good, and then it just kind of fell off, so I was like, I'll just go back to my basic and just have my hands up here and just straight to the ball and just keep it simple pretty much.
You ever wonder why when hitters are going through slumps, or maybe they're just not off to the start or having the kind of season that they want, that one adjustment can kind of make that big difference? And it was something that they were doing prior to when they kind of fell into this trap, if you will. And you ever go, how did I let that kind of thing happen in my swing or my stance or the way I'm holding the bat? You ever wonder about things like that?
It's kind of I love watching all that stuff, breakdowns and stuff. So I can tell what people are doing and how people are hitting, transferring power, all that stuff. And it's just it's weird. Everyone has a different swing. Everyone swings different. Everyone stands different. I just think it's awesome that just one little single minute difference that in your swing can make a whole lot of difference.
Now, as tall as you are, do you? So I don't know your stance. So just is it more upright? Do you kind of crouch, or how do you? What's your situation there?
I kind of have a bent back leg and a little bit of a straight front leg. So it's
I've seen that, yeah.
So I just have my coil already there, so I can just transfer forward and just have all my power go through, instead of just having to load back and then come forward or just lunge forward. It's kind of just I'm already preloaded a little bit, and then I'm just good to go once I see you.
Talk about what your hips mean for you when you're turning on a pitch.
I just unload on a pitch. If I get a fastball somewhere that I can hammer, I just unload on it, and I just try to coil and stay through the ball as much as I can.
They talk about strength with hitting, but I've always, just talking in the years I've talked to coaches, Coach Barry, other coaches that I've ever talked with, is that, you're not hitting it with your arms, you're hitting it with your wrists and the way you fly, your hips fly. You got to keep your hips in. So is that something that's you've always kind of had the discipline to do that, or how has that been for you? And for every batter, I'll back up by saying it's always a work in progress, that you never are always, you can be as consistent as you want, but you always have to kind of remind yourself of those little things when you get up to the plate.
You know, I honestly, whenever I'm swinging, like in games, I'm not thinking about anything. Like, I'm just trying to see pitches. Like, I'm not trying to focus on mechanics or anything like that. But in cages, it's always my main focus, just to like feel how my body's moving and feel like what I can do to like effectively make my body move better, or like what I'm doing wrong. Like, if I roll over a pitch, like stay through, like tight wrists, like strong back wrist, and just stay through balls and hit line drives to the back of the cage most of the time, and that translates into the game.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the series. We talked about last week scoring 43 runs, but maybe just the way you all approached the series against Fossil Ridge, because you guys, I believe, had the bye the week before. Maybe it's 2 weeks ago where you had the bye. But anyway, just the way that you all approached that, and all these games that you played in your first two district series, that's 3 runs at the max. You were 4-0, but you were winning a lot of white knucklers, 3-2, 3-0, that sort of thing. Anything you could tell that just changed? I mean, obviously it was a chain reaction to scoring a bunch of runs, a bunch of hits coming together. Maybe their pitching wasn't as good as what you saw against Chisholm Trail or Brewer, but anything that was different that you could sense? I'll ask you on this, Ethan.
I would just say, like Coach Berry said, it was kind of a trap week last week and this week where, I mean, we obviously knew that we were the better team going into the week, but district baseball is kind of, it's a little bit different than football. Everything's so intense that if you come out and have a bad day, pretty much anybody can beat you. So we kind of went into the week thinking that way, like, hey, we know we're better, but if we don't come out and play to our, like, the best of our ability, we could end up dropping a game here, and that could really hurt our playoff standings and stuff. So we try to keep the intensity up, especially in the dugout. That, I mean, I'm not a hitter, but I know that, like, dugout intensity and all that, it can kind of just, it helps spark that reaction to where everybody's getting hype, everybody's getting excited, and that, especially whenever you get a big hit, it just makes you want it that much more, and then kind of just domino effect, and everything went how I wanted it to.
And then, Luke, I mean, obviously to piggyback on something that Coach Berry said, that it was about playing to a standard. I mean, you had to do that last week against Fossil Ridge. More than likely, you have to do that with Saginaw this week. But when it comes to playing to that standard, how would you, and I might be putting you on the spot here a little bit, but just playing to that standard, how would you all define that? And I'm going to ask you to answer that too, Ethan.
Oh, that's a tough question. So playing to the standard, it's just always playing with class, always like making sure that not trying to be like cocky or anything like of that sort. Also, like always playing like as hard as you can at all times, like not trying to mess around, not trying to make fun of other teams whenever you're beating them pretty bad like we kind of were last week. And just playing, having fun, making sure that, you know, like sometimes we are the better team no matter what on the field, but we just have to make sure that when we play those teams, we take care of business pretty much and not like falter pretty much.
Right. And then for you, Ethan?
Playing to the standard, I mean, our standard's always been to win. Like, we set these goals at the beginning of the season, like undefeated season, or undefeated in district, go to the playoffs, make a deep run. And, like, our standard, I would say, is just to go out and compete and have fun, and then at the end of the day, try to come home with a win.
And most importantly, I would think, too, don't beat yourself with, well, you haven't done it this year with walks or just misplays or errors or things like that. I would think that has to kind of fall in. Don't give them a reason to believe that they can beat you guys that given night. Fair to say?
That is, yes, 100%. Just, the game's mental nowadays. Everyone has the capabilities to do everything on the field. Like, if you can just take care of those mental capabilities, and then as we have pretty much for a lot of the season so far, our fielding, pretty much we haven't had that many errors this year, I'm pretty sure. And just having good attitude when you go to the plate, because the game's hard. Like, you're not going to get a hit every time. Like, it's statistically pretty much impossible to get a hit every time. And so it's just have fun. You know, it's just a game pretty much, and obviously we want to win, but most importantly, it's having fun. It's high school.
I'm going to ask you both this question about your travels through this game when you started as little kids and to where you are now as seniors in high school. Just what have you learned about playing this game? You brought up something, Luke, about the mental part of this game being such probably the greatest challenge, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what have you learned about playing this game over the years? I'll start with you on Ethan, what you've learned about playing this game.
Like Luke just said, I mean, success in baseball it's obviously not going to happen every time. Like, you're going to go out for me and have a bad outing. Like, it's just going to happen, and it's kind of the mental aspect. You just want to reset and know that you can go out the next time and just have a better night or anything like that. And then another thing would probably just be like you get like what you give almost. Like, you put in the work, and then it'll pay off. Like Coach Berry said earlier with Luke was struggling. He went in the cages, got to work, and then obviously had a really great week this week.
Yeah, and then how do you see that? Just what have you learned about this game through your years of playing it?
it's hard. I mean, you're not always going to succeed, and basically you just got to learn from your mistakes. Like, honestly, there's no such thing as failure in this game. Like, you're going to fail. We just got to be able to learn from those mistakes and be able to grind through it, because it's difficult. Like, it gets hard at sometimes, and you just got to put your head down and keep working through those moments.
All right, so I wanted to ask you guys about this because there's obviously still a lot of time left to go in the season, but Senior Day is this coming Saturday for you all at Lake Ridge, and I had the fortune of doing the Senior Day ceremonies the last couple of years, where the great statements were made about, thanking their families, family members, other coaches, things like the teachers or whatever, for playing a role in this. But on Saturday, I'll start with you on this, Ethan, about what will that mean to you on Saturday? Because there's a bunch of seniors on this team, but what will that mean for you in terms of just going out there, having your dad circle the bases, or you're throwing the ball to your dad, or your dad's throwing the ball to you, and that'll happen for you as well. But what will that mean for you on Saturday?
I mean, it'll be great to see not only us as the seniors, but also our parents to get recognized for all the things they do. I mean, my parents have put in countless time, hours, money into my baseball career. Like, I can't remember the last time we went on a real family vacation that wasn't for baseball. It's always just, we've always got something to do, but that'll be nice to see them get recognized, as well as, I mean, I've been a pitcher for the past 2 years, so I might be able to get a couple innings in the field. That'll be fun, a couple at-bats.
Yeah,
and that's always fun. We got to see that last year with some of those senior POs, and I remember one of them was Huffman got a hit and got an RBI, and that was pretty fun to see.
I do remember that, yes. Okay, and then how about for you, Luke?
I mean, it's just awesome that I get to recognize my parents. I mean, I don't tell them enough. I love my parents. They've done so much for me. Like, I can't remember the last time that I haven't played baseball. Like, I don't even think I was a conscious person whenever I didn't. I've played since I was like 4 years old. They're just awesome. They've always supported me and been through like everything that I've been through with me, and just always been there for me. And then hopefully I can get an inning on the mound on Senior Day.
As he's making his lobby look over to Coach Berry, so we'll see how that all unfolds on Saturday afternoon. I will not play a role in influence Coach Berry on that decision, but again, for you guys, though, of course, one last thing before we let you go here. We talk about the Saginaw series being what it is, where they're a little bit having some struggles this year, and as I was asking Coach Berry about this, the idea of not looking ahead to Granbury next week because they're having an outstanding season themselves. What's going to be important for you guys to maintain doing the job Tuesday and Friday, and then worry about Granbury when it comes up next week? I'll start with you on this, Ethan.
I'll just say to trust our process like we've been doing all year. It's not we know that we got to go out there and execute on Tuesday and Friday, or else that series against Granbury is going to have a lot less weight if we're not going into it undefeated. So that's kind of the goal, is just to go in this week and kind of continue our offensive success and continue our success on the mound and on defense like we have been all year, and just go and kind of honestly dominate them, and that'll help keep momentum going into that Granbury week.
All right, and then for you, Luke?
We know how good they've been doing. They know how good we've been doing. It's just a matter of getting there. I mean, we're not really focused on that. Like, what happens with them, it happens. I'm focused on the next game, my next at-bat, and executing when I can execute. It's not like all this fancy stuff where, oh, yeah, like we got to like focus on Granbury now. Like, no, this is like the week that we need to focus on. Tomorrow's game is what we need to focus on.
Just exactly what that guy sitting over to your left wanted to hear about that. So, guys, thank you all very much for being with us. To my far left is senior pitcher Ethan Hodo, and then to my immediate left, senior outfielder Luke Trager. Let's hear it for these two young men. And this final reminder that this Aledo Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda, head to Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth today. Their new state-of-the-art facility is conveniently located just off of I-30. Exit Las Vegas Trail and experience top-notch service and hassle-free buying. don't forget to ask about this month's special offers. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family owned and operated for more than 30 years. Next week on this podcast, softball coach Heather Myers returns with a couple of her players. We'll be hoping to speak to pitcher Taylor McKean. She just eclipsed 350 strikeouts for her illustrious career for Aledo. And this team should have clinched its playoff berth, along with zeroing in on the District 5-5A title. More about that next week. And of course, next week is the final week of their regular season. So for my engineer, Brian Torres, and for the Hank FM promotion staff, I'm Kevin Lonnquist. Thank you for being with us each and every week for this podcast. We'll talk to you all next week from Blue Rays of New Orleans here in Hudson Oaks for the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. With the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. You're also welcome to join us every Monday night at 7 for Blue Rays of New Orleans in Hudson Oaks. It's the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Real Country 92.1 Hank FM.